Hi, I'm Jeff Apodaca.
Eric Strauss.
And welcome to Let's Meet in the Middle this week.
Should be a fun show.
Well, we're going to be talking about oil and gas.
Should be a fun show.
And we are going to be talking about, well, a bunch of different
revenue
things.
And politicians drunk on money as usual.
Eric and I talk a lot about the presidential race.
Yep.
And so what I wanted to, which you'd be very proud, is I was watching.
I'm always proud
I was
of you.
watching. I was watching the Tonight Show the other night, and Elizabeth Warren was on the Tonight Show.
Yeah, there she is.
And so I try to explain to people, the minute that she was forced to roll out her Medicare for all cost, she plummeted, and all of a sudden last week on the Tonight Show, she started talking about, well, you know, if you're under 18, free insurance, over 50, you can keep your private insurance, and then you're going to have a public option, and you can keep your private. And she was been adamant about not keeping private at all. And so
free isn't free.
Free isn't free. So I'm just laughing because now, and if you look at the polls, you know, the last week's polls, she was one of the leaders. She's now dropped, and this is a national poll.
And Harris is gone.
But if you look at that, Kamala Harris dropped out because of 3%. But Elizabeth Warren has literally dropped about 15, 17 points in the last four states.
And she's apologizing again.
Well, now she's
Pocahontas thing.
Well, and that's when she lost me.
Yeah,
that's when she lost me.
Why is she re-apologizing now, though? She's back in the news cycle.
Well, I think
at a bowling alley.
I think she's trying to get back into the news cycle. So
like stack the
But again,
sandbags
here
a
she
bit.
was, and again, I do think we have to change our healthcare system. We've talked about that, but here she was promoting Medicare for all and saying nope, you can't have a private option, and that's what I've been saying. You've got to give people choices to drive the cost down. And
now there's
now she's dropping, and all the top candidates have always said we should have a public option, but we should keep our private options available too. What's going on in your world?
I'm all about just private stuff, you know, like just let private industry and a competitive market rue the day.
Not if that private industry, like in healthcare, control insurance costs, pharmaceutical costs, and operational costs.
Correct. That's where there needs to be regulation, but not government control.
Right.
That's easy. That's an easy solution.
Absolutely.
So my world, well, I'll talk about this later on in the show, but the children mining cobalt and this whole push for electric cars, and there's unintended consequences to everything. As with art, the art bus downtown is now crashed. What? Five times in 2 weeks.
5 and 8 days.
5 and 8 days.
5 and 8 days.
So and you'll notice that. Look at that bus is coming from one way and turning into oncoming traffic. It's such a train wreck. And look at the signal. Do you see the white dash? Like, who came up with these signals?
Here's a picture of one of the buses. And by the way,
next to the lumberjack.
Two of the buses are now out of commission because they crashed.
So how many are we down to?
And if you go,
is there 5 total?
No, they got 20.
20?
Oh no, they got 20 ARB buses. Oh no, there's 20 ARB buses.
Oh, wow.
But if you look at this, here's the biggest reason is, so you got these bus lanes, and then you have these turn lanes. And there's confusion. Do you turn on the green light? Do you turn on the arrow?
That's harrowing.
If you go look at the accidents, every accident was the bus was cruising, and all of a sudden the bus was cruising, and all of a sudden now
5 crashes. Did Jackie ride it? She was going to ride it downtown.
No, we didn't. No, we got busy with kid stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah. I did ride it on the initial rollout. I have not ridden it since. I will ride it again. It's white knuckling, dude.
We were talking about doing that.
You're holding on like a thrill ride as it goes down Central, and people are like turning in front of the bus, and you're like, who designed this?
Let me tell you, I love Nob Hill. I come down from the lead coal streets, or I don't go to Nob Hill anymore because you can't take left-hand turns. It's very confusing.
Very confusing.
Anyway, one of the things, and I know we're going to debate this, but I wanted to show
the party of diversity.
The party of diversity.
You're proving to me how diverse the Democrats are.
You keep saying on our show and to me that
rich white
the
people.
Democrats are all rich white people. So Mary Kay, if you can show the picture, there's like 27 people running. Mm-hmm. About 60% are white males.
Okay.
But they have Hispanics, blacks. 27% of them are women. And if you look down in the corner, the next slide. There's 3 white guys from the Republican Party.
Well, there's really only 1.
Well, I understand that, but my point is,
we already know that, though.
But you make comments all the time that there's only rich white guys running for president, and you call Buttigieg a rich white guy. Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, a rich white guy, And I went and found a Forbes tax return and basically showed he had $100,000 worth of wealth. Now, you might consider that wealthy. I don't. But I'm just saying this.
But you got to remember,
look, and I'm
you're
not
coming
saying,
from a
and go back to 2016.
I'm a blue collar guy, literally
Mary
blue
Kay,
collar
if you can put
today.
up the picture for president in 2016, there was diversity at the Republicans in 2016. They had one black gentleman, they had one Hispanic guy, one East Indian,
ate Ben Carson
and one woman.
They ate him up.
Right.
The Democrats eat their own all the time.
No, I don't disagree with that. But for you to make comments that the Democratic leadership of the party is wealthy white guys, just not true.
Okay, well, Kamala Harris accused you of that, being sexist.
Excuse me?
No, well, the Democratic Party. That's your party. What? What was her big thing, remember?
I don't know
Sexist?
Kamala Harris, so if she's...
No, Kamala Harris, when she dropped out, accused the Democrats of sexism,
Yeah.
racism. The Democrats will eat their own. They'll eat their own.
And I don't
They'll
disagree.
turn on each
I don't
other the
disagree.
minute they don't
By
like
the way,
you.
by the way, one thing before we get in the show,
Yes.
because we're going to be talking about oil and gas today and our 47% of our economy. But I just want to remind everybody that we now have our new YouTube channel up and running.
Yes, yes.
So you can
Every
find us,
episode.
and you have to find us on Let's Meet in the Middle, New Mexico, because if you do NM, it doesn't pop up. But we're now
Look at
downloading.
those episodes. Those are award-winning TV.
I'm telling you,
by
we're
the
now
way.
downloading. I think we're up to 19 shows.
Yeah.
So we're downloading all our shows. So if you missed any of our shows, you can go to YouTube at Let's Meet in the Middle, New Mexico.
Yep.
And you can find us and look at the topics. We look at the topics, but those are all there right
It's a
now.
great
so.
show, by the way. You should see. You should go back and watch every
And
episode.
there's some that we really went into it with you. You and I got into it.
We don't get into it.
Anyway, but today we have some guests on from oil and gas. Dan McCabe from the Albuquerque Journal is going to join us.
Politicians drunk on money.
They're doing a series this week about oil and gas. So,
Yeah.
hey, let's get started.
Let's meet in the middle.
In a time of a divided America, two people from different points of view sit down to talk about the problems, to talk about ideas, to talk about life, and to find common ground. It is now time for Let's Meet in the Middle with your hosts Eric Strauss and Jeff Apodaca.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Joining us now is Robert McIntyre, Director of Communication for New Mexico Oil and Gas. And I guess the impetus behind this show was the Journal is running
They're running a series this week about oil and gas,
and the booming revenue.
47% of our economy now.
Up 46% this fiscal year. We jumped California in production. We're now third in the nation for oil production. Is that true?
I think we're third in the world.
Third in the world?
Third in the nation. So,
Oh, third in the nation.
Yeah, I was like...
So Texas and North Dakota are still ahead of New Mexico. But really, if we zoom out and look at the global picture, the United States has actually emerged as the top producer of oil and gas in the world.
Right.
For the past couple of years, we've been behind Saudi Arabia, Russia. We've actually moved to the top spot this year, in large part due to production growth from the Permian Basin and other shale basins across the country. But New Mexico has been a big part of the United States now leaping Saudi Arabia and Russia to take the top spot globally.
And let's talk real quick about why. Why is
Right.
I mean, that oil's been there forever. Is it new technologies? Is it new? Is it new things that are going on that we've jumped up so much?
Right. So, the Permian Basin has long been one of the focal points for American oil and gas production. So, even back in World War II, a lot of people will say it's the basin that fueled America to victory, powering our planes and our boats and our tanks all over the world. But what we've seen over the past couple of years is we've moved from conventional development, which we saw several decades ago, to unconventional development. So that's really using technologies like fracking and horizontal drilling to unlock resources that we knew were there. We didn't have the technology, and we didn't have the technology at scale to access some of those resources. And what we're finding today is there are huge resource deposits across the Permian Basin, but largely focused in the Delaware Basin. And that's really where New Mexico has an important role. That's become the sweet spot for the Permian.
And I think part of it too is from the older generation like me that remember this, the oil crisis in the 70s. I think it was Carter. I know I was 10. I think it was Carter. We disallowed our oil industry to export,
Right.
to kind of protect us. And your boy Obama, by the way, basically allowed oil companies in the United States to start exporting. So that's another big reason that you've seen the United States jump up, because for the first time in 40 years, we could export our oil, correct?
So dare I say
Absolutely.
the Democrats have become the party of oil and gas? It's amazing.
47% of our economy, absolutely.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
By the way,
Mike
Democratic friends in Santa Fe are very appreciative of the $8 billion we're getting
I
and the
bet.
$2 billion surplus.
Well, just to quote the former president, as the United States moved to the #1 spot, President Obama remarked, "That was me, people," and it certainly
Remember that.
It certainly was due in large part to opening those additional markets and allowing the United States now to become a net exporter. So we're actually sending more out than we're taking more in. And that's a huge accomplishment for America, especially over the past couple of decades. You know, generations of Americans have now grown up with the idea that we rely on other countries for our energy needs. We've flipped the script on that. You know, we now have access to the energy that we need in our backyard, and we're now providing access to that energy to other parts of the world.
You mentioned fracking and horizontal drilling, which
Right.
is really the changes in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
That is a major issue with environmentalists, with a lot of the progressives on my party. I was booed and attacked on the campaign trail because we weren't going to move away from fracking because I know what's happening down there for the next 10, 15 years.
Right.
But talk a little bit about what your industry is doing, because I try to explain to some of the environmentalists that the industry is really improving that technology and doing it very safely. And correct me if I'm wrong, we've never had any issues on the fracking, at least in the state of New Mexico.
Right. So in New Mexico, we have regulations, we have protections, we have safeguards in place to ensure that the process is safe. It protects communities, it protects the land and the air and the water. But it's a process we've used in New Mexico for a very long time. We've used fracking in New Mexico for several decades now, going
I think back in the 50s.
Right, going back to that World War II era, and we've used it for several decades without any case of groundwater contamination, while protecting the land, ensuring that we're good stewards of our resources, we're good stewards of our land and our local communities. But really, you know, what you hear around this fracking debate is not really about fracking. It's about producing oil and gas. And I think that most people are unfamiliar with this technology and with this term, and environmentalists have correctly seized on this process as a critical step that if they can stop oil and gas production altogether. And so really it's become a red herring. We're not having a debate about fracking, we're having a debate about oil and gas, and the process itself is being attacked as a way to stop oil and gas production.
Well, let's talk about one thing, because one of the things that always comes up is the flaring. And
Right.
the methane, and methane leaks are a lot different than the flaring.
Yeah.
But I want to remind people, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as we bring up the oil, we're just talking about the southern part, not the natural gas area.
Right.
But as we bring up the oil, I try to explain to people, about 8% of the oil has natural gas in it. There is technologies today that we can separate that out if we choose to, but since we haven't invested into the infrastructure, it's just easier to flare out, or am I wrong there?
So there definitely is associated gas with oil production. So as we've seen oil production in the southeast grow, we've also seen a corresponding increase in natural gas that's produced alongside. Some of the challenges with getting that natural gas, you know, the technology is there to separate it and move it to natural gas processing facilities. I think if anyone were to take a drive around southeast New Mexico, you'd find a dozen of these facilities being built as we speak, because the demand is there and the desire is there to take that gas and to move it to market. But you correctly hit on the point that a lot of this really relates to infrastructure. At the end of the day, it requires us to be able to have some capacity to take the gas from the wellhead to a processing plant and ultimately to consumers. Traditionally, this has been a little bit of a challenge for us, moving natural gas and having pipelines permitted across federal lands. And that's an issue that New Mexico certainly has at our doorstep. We have a lot of federal lands in southeast New Mexico. Almost half of our oil production takes place on federal lands in the southeast. So, you know, we really have to figure out a way to ensure that we're able to permit these projects in a timely way so that we can put the infrastructure investment in place that allows us to take that natural gas from the wellhead to market.
So 13,000 jobs.
Yeah.
46% increase in production, and now $1 billion surplus for the fiscal year.
Right.
And why on earth, if flaring's a big issue, why aren't people looking for solutions to get that natural gas to the ultimate consumer and get these pipelines in so that we can do something with the net, because that's a whole nother revenue stream we're missing out on.
And one of the things that we talked about, or we've talked about in the past, is refineries,
Right.
or pipelines, because it's very expensive. Plus, before even the campaign, when I ran for governor, we took our kids down to Carlsbad, and then we were down there campaigning. And Mary Kay, can you put up the picture of Highway 285? Because this is I'm telling you, I've been down on that before.
It's harrowing.
And they call it the Highway of Death, something like that.
Well, huge
and,
trucks.
I mean, look at this picture
Look at
right
that.
here. But it goes all the way around the bend.
And you know how
And that's daily, right? Correct me if I'm right, Robert. That's daily.
Yeah.
And that's a two-lane highway. And so we've been pushing for, since at least for 5-6 years. Now the legislators have now allocated some capital outlay money, and hopefully we're expanding that to a 4-lane. Is that correct? 4-lane.
Right. So
That's not enough. Should be like a super highway.
Possibly. Infrastructure is definitely one of the key issues that we'd like to see addressed in southeast New Mexico, and it's one of our key challenges. We're seeing this traffic, and we're seeing the deteriorating roadways because of the robust growth, just unprecedented traffic and volume that we've seen over the past couple of years. And really, this is what a high growth, this is what a very busy, a growing economy looks like. And we've made the case, and we continue to make the case. Investing in infrastructure is not just investing in roadways, it's an investment in our economies. As we are able to improve roadways, as we're able to put more vehicles safely on the road, that increases our ability to grow our economy, increases the ability for us to take additional products to market, allows more seamless flow of traffic. Carlsbad is probably home to more traffic jams in New Mexico than anywhere else.
Well, and Carlsbad, the people in Carlsbad are upset. So there's also articles of Carlsbad saying, why aren't we getting a fair share? One diner has this sign in it: Santa Fe taketh more than it giveth. And I think that's the whole issue that you're going to see moving forward with this current administration in the governor's office is you want the money, but you're going to push back against oil and gas at every avenue you can get.
Well, and to defend that area, 2 of the counties, and I think Dan mentioned this in his article, 2 of the counties produce 90% of the oil, of the revenue from that. And one of the biggest issues, what no one ever talks about, is everybody talks about and this is what got me interested about doing the show this week, is because when you start looking at it, look, they need more schools. They need upgraded in schools. Not only just infrastructure and highways. They need more firemen. McDonald's now is paying $14 to $18 an hour for those jobs because they can't find anybody. The Albuquerque Journal talked about man camps. I sit on 2 advisory boards for nonprofits. We're looking at building affordable housing down there because there's no housing that's exploded so much. And everybody's worried about the downturn. I get that. But it doesn't sound like that downturn is going to happen anytime soon.
Alongside growing oil production, I think top of mind for most oil and natural gas producers are the issues that you just addressed. Education, housing, roadways, healthcare, workforce. Across the board, these are issues that the industry is actively thinking about, not just because it's something that we need to solve today, it's something we need to look at for the next decade plus, because these are going to be issues for the long term, not just tomorrow or not just next year.
I want to talk real quick, because we only have a few more minutes. I want to talk real quick on a couple topics. One of the big pushbacks also from the Democratic Party and some of the environmentalists is the fresh water you guys take on fracking, because let's be frank, we got to frack with water. And I'm trying to explain to people that the number one investor in desalination and cleaning up the water is the oil and gas industry, both in Texas and in New Mexico. A lot of that technology developed right here at Sandia Labs. What are you guys doing to push that on the recycle side of it?
Well, almost every major oil and gas producer in southeast New Mexico knows that access to fresh water is just not realistic in New Mexico, not just for our industry, but for any industry. It's not readily available. So we've been investing in technologies to help us recycle, to reuse more of that water. And a lot of our companies report that they're using in the high 80s to 90% recycled water in their fracking operation, so that we're not having to draw from freshwater resources. The governor just signed a bill and made a major announcement to build a partnership with the New Mexico State University to research ways how we treat and we reuse produced water, so that potentially, we're not only taking some of that water that we're pulling up alongside oil and gas, some of that produced water that's coming up deep beneath the surface, but we're also reusing it for maybe other purposes like irrigated agriculture or other industrial or commercial uses.
So at the end of the day, do you feel like the governor, the land commissioners, are they supporting the oil and gas industry, or are you feeling like, and I know you probably have to kind of walk on eggshells a bit, or are you feeling like there's this, we love the money, but we hate the oil and gas industry?
No, I feel like the administration, the governor and her team, her cabinet secretaries, the land commissioner have been very clear that the oil and gas industry is a critical part of New Mexico. It's offering us new opportunities to invest in ways that we haven't before. New permanent fund, free college tuition for everyone. And whether you agree or disagree with these issues, whether you agree or disagree, it's giving us the opportunity to have these conversations. And I think our elected officials, and not just those at the statewide level, I think we have a lot of legislators who recognize that it's providing a huge amount of opportunity for New Mexico to think about what the state looks like in the future and how we invest to create.
Well, Robert, with about 30 seconds to go, anything we haven't covered that you want to let us know what your industry and your association is doing?
Yeah, I would just point to the outlook of the industry. It continues to be very strong. NMOGA recently, in partnership with ICF, we launched a report that forecasted growth through 2030, and the growth of the industry through the next decade will be very, very strong. You can read the report at nmoga.org/2030, but essentially we're looking at billions of dollars in additional revenue to schools, hundreds of thousands of new jobs, and billions added to the state GDP over the next decade.
Well, thank you. Well, Robert, we really want to thank you for joining us today. That's some great information. And look, we're going to come back with Dan McKay from the Albuquerque Journal, talk about how our legislators want to spend that money. We'll be back right after this. And thank you, Indigo Mortgage, for being our sponsor.
Thank you, Indigo.
Find us on Facebook at Let's Meet in the Middle, or you can email us at meetinthemiddlenm@gmail.com.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Joining us now is Dan McKay. You are the Albuquerque Journal political writer, but you also did this series on oil and gas in New Mexico. Very well done, by the way.
That's running all week long.
Yeah, all week long you're going to have a different segment, and I think you did a great job with it. What kind of piqued your interest to run this series of stories, or what was the impetus? Was it your editor going, let's do this, or did you go to the editor and say, we've got this revenue, let's run with this and come up with some stories on oil and gas? So
it's just clear that energy is really transforming New Mexico. I mean, New Mexico is kind of part of, you can see sort of what's happening throughout the nation, but we've got coal country in the northwest part of the state, which is struggling, and then we've got the fastest growing region of oil production in the nation, also in the southeast part of the state. It's just a really fascinating time in New Mexico. There are financial implications, there are cultural implications. There's just it just was time for us to take a look at how this is changing the state.
I mean, when you say that, literally, you could probably run with the entire month.
Well, and
if not two.
And we've had a show on energy before, and the reason, and actually, Dan, to be very frank, we saw your series start, and we were going to do another show, and we pushed that show back because I thought this would be really interested, because we know going into the session and all that stuff, we have talked on the show before that 42, 43, 47% of our economy is based on oil and gas. Yep. We all believe in diversification.
Now the third highest oil producing state in the union.
And
which is crazy.
And one of the things is, you were down there. Tell us a little bit about the infrastructure needs that you saw down there, because even in your article, you talked about school needs, hospital needs, doctors, nurses, teachers. Talk a little bit about that, because that's one of the things, a lot of people forget about that. Those communities grow so fast, and then all of a sudden there's not an infrastructure there to support, and they've been hollering for at least 3 or 4 years now that I'm aware of, guys, we need help.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just an energy story or a business desk story or anything like that. I mean, really, some of these communities in the southeast part of the state, the population has just exploded, and it's changing everything from what restaurants you can eat at to who's teaching your kids in school. You know, the oil fields pay a premium, so they attract a lot of the workforce, and then that makes it more difficult to build homes to serve the workforce. There's just these tremendous ripple effects that are really, really fascinating, and it has an effect on you know, education, on roads, on the environmental protection. It's just really a fascinating story.
One of the things that we've talked about before, and like in your article, you talked about, like, we're short on construction workers, we're short on infrastructure workers, and we've talked about on the educational pipeline, we've moved away from trade-skilled opportunities for kids in high school, and now we're short, I believe, almost 3,000 construction workers around the state. So that's hindering us a little bit too.
That's not even talking about welders.
Right. I mean,
there's a shortage nationwide for welders.
But one of the things I hit on, and you and I have had this debate before or discussion before, but Lee County and Eddy County, they're recruiting teachers from the Philippines.
Yeah.
They're recruiting immigrant workers because they need them. Talk to us a little bit about that, what you're seeing there, because that's just not that county. We're short teachers all over the place, and I've been saying for years, why aren't we importing, you know, recruiting teachers from not only the Philippines, but from Mexico, South America, things like that. Tell us a little bit what you've seen down there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. People might think of oil workers as, you know, the white working class or something like that. But actually, there are a lot of immigrants in southeast New Mexico. In Hobbs, 40% of the homes, in 40% of the homes, a language other than English is spoken. The school districts are trying really hard to recruit teachers, and teachers are having a tough time finding places to live. And now the school district is actively trying to find the teachers a place to live, and sometimes that means recruiting someone from the Philippines or India or Venezuela, and they come in, and the school district helps them find a place to live, and there's some cultural exchange. You know, it really is pretty fascinating.
And I think, and I can't remember if your article or one of the superintendents we've had on before, they've talked about how some of the parents are actually having teachers live with them because there's no housing, right?
I have heard that too, yeah. There will be families that will open a bedroom so that a teacher can live with them. Or teachers will rent a house together, and there might be four teachers living in, you know, each renting a bedroom in a house.
Now, what I want, because our viewers are from all over the state, and people forget about the Southeast and the industry down there, and it is 90% oil and gas. I mean, that is the industry down there. But we talk about infrastructure, but my biggest concern is we can solve some of these problems, specifically Highway 285, if we invested into our own refineries in the Southeast, if we built the pipelines to the refineries. And I get the federal land, but there's a big push also not to do that. And I've tried to explain to my progressive Democratic friends, if we did that, not only would we create jobs, it's cleaner, it's better, and it saves the environment.
And it puts us in control of the money.
And puts us in control. What, you know, as a reporter from both sides, I haven't seen, and again, this is day 2 of the series, is there a series coming out about the pushback on this? Is there a story coming out on the pushback in this, or?
Tomorrow's package of stories will deal with environmental protection, methane emissions, wildlife, an issue you guys, I've heard you talk about before, the produced water and the use of water in the business. In terms of refineries, I think there are a lot of businesses who are looking for this opportunity to build kind of a sustainable energy center in the southeast part of the state, where we're not just you know, pumping oil, but maybe some of the refinery work or other stuff will happen here. But you know, these are complicated. There's complicated economics. These are complicated things to deal with, and the industry itself can be pretty volatile. So it's a tough nut to crack.
So, and when you say that, is there this fear that we build this infrastructure and suddenly the oil dries up? Is that the big fear of let's not dump all our money in? See, my big thing is in the Journal, with this revenue is off the top, and this is my own home budget. When you experience a windfall of money, you don't just go spend it. And that's what I get so nervous about the Roundhouse. 30 to 40% should be stocked away of this revenue windfall, in my opinion. That's not, how much you want to bet that doesn't happen?
Well,
they say it's going to happen.
They say they're going to put 20% away. They say they're going to put 20% away.
But why aren't we sacking some of this money away? And have you heard? Like
you're hitting on a really important dynamic that's happening at the legislature, which is this tension over. There are some lawmakers who want to spend a lot more money on schools and early childhood education, things that are a recurring cost that continues over time. And then there are other lawmakers who are saying, well, let's spend this money on one-time things like improving a road or something like that. That way it's not an ongoing expense. And that is a clash that's happening in the legislature.
But it makes sense, though, when you think about it. If you're building, okay, so do we agree that oil and gas revenue is like a roller coaster ride? Well, that's my big question. They projected out to 2030 from our last guest, right? Apparently, well, but that's only a decade, right?
But let's put it this way: as we see our state grow, the question was, why are we afraid to invest into the infrastructure? And my point is the community's growing. That community now, looking at the paper, 75,000 people now live in that community.
It's crazy.
That's the third largest city in the state now.
That's crazy.
I mean, that'd be bigger than Santa Fe, because Santa Fe is like 70,000 people. So I'm saying, okay, and it goes and flows, and there's seasonal workers. But my point is that industry is not going away anytime soon.
No.
It's getting better. It's getting cleaner. We're going to be investing, which I support 100%, into renewables on that side of the state. So the infrastructure is going to be needed for years to come. And I just don't see oil prices dropping dramatically. And even if they drop dramatically, so we need to invest. We've talked about this many times. We need to invest into our state to build that infrastructure up. The legislators, do you see, besides the Southeast, where, hey, you take my money to Santa Fe, is there support from the rest of the legislators around the state, or they just want to spend the money in their communities?
I think it mixed. That's a matter of opinion. I think if you talk to the majority Democrats in the House, who tend to be a little more liberal than the Democrats in the Senate, they'll argue, well, we've spent tens of millions of dollars to prop up a brine well that might collapse. We're dedicating a lot of the new road money to the southeast part of the state. So they'll argue that we're doing our part. I think if you talk to people in the southeast, though, obviously there's this feeling that, hey, we're providing the bulk of the revenue, but we only get like 3% of the capital project or something,
That's a big issue, though, you got to admit. And if what we're saying is true and they're providing the bulk of the revenue, why aren't we supporting that and building that infrastructure along that deadly highway? That should be 4 lanes minimum. With that much traffic going through?
If we could put up the picture again, I mean, this is
crazy.
Highway 285 that takes you to Texas.
Look at the bits of tire on the road.
And let me tell you, this isn't just like one shot. This is I've been down there. This is every day.
Every day.
I mean, this is every day, 7 days a week, and there's fatalities almost every week.
So if you're prioritizing and you're saying 4% of revenue is going to that needs to be emergency situation.
But out of if the legislators were here today,
I agree with the people
out of the $600 million we allocated out to capital LA infrastructure, I believe $300 million of it is going to these type of projects down south. Am I right there, or is it not that high?
There's some temporary provisions in place where I think there's an increased vehicle excise tax, and then the bulk of that money, or maybe all of the new money, is going into the southeast part of the state.
So that's what I don't understand. Why a tax to pay for money when we have a surplus? It gets insane.
We're going to go to commercial, but before we do, Dan, we'll be back. We'll be back for another segment, and the next segment we're going to be talking about politics and budgeting and what Dan sees on the political side as we talk about this. But anyway, I want to thank Indigo Mortgage. Ben Lucero does great mortgages, and veterans. He has a great VA program out there, so let's do that.
Takes care of our veterans.
Takes care of our veterans.
So support companies that support the people that take care of our people.
Don't forget, we're on Facebook Live. You can always follow us on Facebook Live at Let's Meet in the Middle. But we'll be back right after this.
I am a nurse. a firefighter,
a college student,
a mother, and I am an American soldier. I will always be ready
for every storm
and disaster that threatens my community.
I will always be there to protect my neighbors,
my family,
and my country.
We are the Army National Guard.
We are the Army National Guard.
We are the Army National Guard.
Visit nationalguard.com to learn more about part-time service.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Find us on Facebook at Let's Meet in the Middle, or you can email us at meetinthemiddlenm@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Dan McKay is back with us. We're going to get into kind of the mucky stuff now with surplus.
Dan covers Santa Fe. Dan covers politics. So look, the number one issue we always run into is on this show and across the board, and I saw it on the campaign trail, within the Democratic Party, there's a progressive faction in there that wants to shut down oil and gas, wants to get rid of it. And then the legislators are kind of like, oh, we need it right now specifically.
They want to fund everything with it, but then get rid of it.
And I've been saying there's technology that basically makes it better. So we can make it better with that.
But it doesn't have to be
let's talk about this, because you're covering, and we're going into a short session this year. It's completely about the budget. Every indication shows they're going to have about $1.2 billion of surplus. What are you hearing? Where they're going to spend that money? How they're going to budget that money? You know, what are you hearing on that side?
Well, they're definitely facing a lot of increased pressure to improve school spending again. You know, there's this sort of tension between the different legislators about whether to spend on ongoing things or on one-time projects. And schools is something that legislators are going to be talking about. And there will be a division even among Democrats about how much spending should go towards education. The legislature has repeatedly, even before this oil boom, been ramping up spending on early childhood education, you know, which is like home visiting, child care, that kind of thing. And there also will be continued pressure to send more of the money to the southeast and improve these roads. You know, which side will win out, you know, I don't know, but I think lawmakers realize they're facing, you know, a really important decision that will have long-lasting consequences.
And so when you say, is your view that the House is generally more progressive, more liberal than the Senate? You're saying there's almost more conservative Democrats in the Senate. Is that kind of an actual, accurate portrayal?
There are 8, what they would consider themselves, 8 moderate conservative Dems that live in more moderate areas. Those 8, we call them, remember I called them the 4 Horsemen last year?
Yeah.
And I got attacked on social media because I called them the 4 Horsemen. And that was just you know, they're kind of the wall. They're the common sense people.
Yeah.
And so when the House was trying to raise our taxes and spend our money, it was the Senate that basically said, whoa, let's hold off on that.
Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
But here, I think the bigger issue too is, why is there this push for non-sustainable programs? That's what drives me nuts about the government. We always create these programs and we'll pay for it later. You know, in my opinion, you know, it's like, let's spend this money on things that we can get long-term value out of, not something that's going to be a long-term.
Like Dan, one of the big pushes from the governor now is free college for everybody.
Yeah.
Right, $35 million for free college. And I've had Democratic friends say, Jeff, aren't you for free college? I was like, no.
How?
I said, because the problem is it might work now because we have $1 billion.
Yeah, but it's.
But what happens when it doesn't? And then I was on a UNM advisory board, and what I saw when they're pushing kids to college is 43% dropout rate between freshmen and sophomores.
Worse at UNM, by the way.
But let's
Worse
talk about
UNM.
That is UNM.
Oh,
that
number's got to be up more.
No, that was at UNM a couple of years ago. But the question I have for you is, budget-wise, are you seeing the legislators talking right now, and some of the subcommittees they're doing? Because I'm still hearing we got to raise taxes. I'm still hearing we got to do this with the surpluses.
You don't hear that all the time.
What are you hearing on the tax side, on the revenue side, project-wise?
Well, it's a little hard to say. I think that there are a lot of legislators who would take almost kind of the opposite view of you, which is that they're hearing from their constituents, oh, we've got all this money. You need to transform our school system. We're facing this, massive lawsuit. Why are you being so cautious and trying to set aside money when we're swimming in money? How can you tell the schools you don't have enough money? So there's this big clash over that particular issue. And to your point about the Senate, the dynamic could be a little bit different this year because while it has been generally a little more moderate or more conservative, lawmakers from rural areas hold a little more power in the Senate. It is an election year, so it could be that they will feel a little more pressure from political influences. It's hard to say. The Senate is only up every 4 years rather than every 2, so it's a little.
And everybody's up this year.
Yeah.
And 6 of the 8, at least for right now, 6 of the 8 moderates have been primaried by progressive Democrats in the primary. So there's an internal fight even within the party going on.
The progressives are so organized. And I know, look, I know you're kind of trying to stay away from giving us your opinion because you're a journalist. You should be a biased media person like the rest of them out there, but that's fine. So in your opinion, do you think there's a bigger push to save, or is there a bigger push to just let's get drunk on this money and spend it wildly? Or is it just right now it could go either way?
I would say that John Arthur Smith, the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, he has tremendous influence among both Democrats and Republicans on the Senate side. And he has faced a lot of criticism for wanting to hold on to the money, plow it into reserves, put it into one-time projects. So, if you're betting on how the budget's going to go, John Arthur Smith is always a good one to bet on because he's about as influential as anybody. But
and our Democratic Party's going after him. He's a Dem. They're going after him in the primary.
But he's not the only voice. I mean, we've got a new governor. The House has an expanded Democratic majority. So we'll see. You're going to see that tension, and it's hard for me to tell how it's going to turn out.
Dan, right now, because this would be with the surpluses. I've always said, people have asked me, Jeff, if you had won, you were sitting in that governor's office, what would you be doing? First of all, I go back to my business days. I'd go back to my business days. We always put 25% of our profits within capital expenditures for down the road. Yes. So I would put about 25%. I would pay off some of the debt. Some of the debt we have with the rail runner coming, with the spaceport, and then let's expand some of that to make money. I'm glad the governor paid off the debt from the movie industry. We had close to $400 million. But saying that, the budgeting wise that you see, are you seeing them budgeting, because they're already going through the budgeting process right now. Are you seeing them budgeting to spend the money? This is, and another part is, because the governor's put a task force together, are they going to redo our taxes? Are they really going to take seriously? What are you hearing about the tax?
Because they're going to increase. They're going to increase taxes. Let me add.
Or restructure it.
Yeah, taxes. I think they're going to take another shot at changing the tax code this session. But they've been working on that for a while, and sometimes only a small amount gets through or nothing gets through. But there are quite a few legislators talking in a bipartisan fashion about how they can change the tax code and maybe remove some of these exemptions and lower the rate overall. But it's a really complicated thing to do, but there will be a push to do that.
And the positive thing is Brian Egoff, the Speaker of the House, he's for this. Him and I have sat and talked about it pre-campaign, post-campaign. There is a push because it is an opportunity that if we have these type of surpluses right now, we might have to spend a little bit of here to get this going, but it is an opportunity that we can literally restructure our tax system to make us competitive across the country.
Is the feeling right now, because you cover the Roundhouse, is the governor well-liked? Is that the general feeling you're getting, just covering politics in Santa Fe?
That's a question you always ask me, and I don't answer it.
Well, he's a journalist, though. He can get a feel. He can put his finger on the pulse.
Well, I came in at the end of the Martinez administration, and at that point, everybody was kind of at each other's throats. Yeah. So by contrast, I would say everyone seems to be getting along pretty well right now. I mean, the governor has had, she walked into a tremendous opportunity, lots of money, expanded Democratic majority in the House.
Lots of majority, lots of money.
So things are probably about as good as they're gonna get. I mean, generally speaking, you know, the way that I've seen these things go, relationships tend to grow more tense. People tend to get more frustrated with each other, you know, by the longer you're in office.
This up, you got to admit,
she's
messing up a huge
We have about
opportunity.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
State Investment Council, permanent fund. I talked about investing some of it back in the state, not spending it. Is there still a big push to take 0.5% percentage out for education, or has that kind of gone away a little bit since we have all this cash?
That is a really interesting question. Until now, that push has not gone away, and I don't think it will go away. But there are some of these alternative ideas that are starting to pop up, like maybe a new endowment fund for early education. The governor's floated that idea. Whether any of that would take the place of this additional 1% that's been sought, you know, it's hard to say. But there are some new ideas coming up. You know, maybe they will agree on something.
Well, we definitely need to have you back on as we vet this session out.
Absolutely.
You
We'll
might-
have,
yeah,
we'll
we'd
have
love
him
to
on
have
during
you
the
back
session anyway.
Yeah.
But Dan, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't seen
Thanks
it
for
this,
coming on
if
today.
you haven't seen it this week, go onto the AlbuquerqueJournal.com to look at the
Great
series.
story.
It's a great series, 5-week series. Anyway, we'll be back right after this.
Thanks to your generosity, Marines have delivered Christmas to children in need since 1947.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Get along down the road, we got a long, long way to go. Scared to live, scared to die. We ain't perfect, but we try. Get along while we can. Always give love the upper hand. Paint a wall, learn to dance. Call your mom, buy a boat, sing a song, make a friend. Can't we all get along?
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. What a great show.
Carbon capture. This is actually, and I meant to bring this up.
Capture.
The Albuquerque Journal Business Outlook this week did a carbon capture, and this is about San Juan, and there's a new company up there for like a $3 billion investment. But that's what I'm trying to explain to people, is there's technology that you can suck the carbon back in and create energy and create gas.
80% of water
Right.
being, 90%, you said. 90% of water is being recycled.
Well, and let me explain something too that our viewers may not know. We actually live in a state with 11 of the largest aquifers in the country.
Yeah.
They're brackish. So, but the technology today.
That's perfect for fracking.
No, you can't use brackish water.
Oh, you can't?
You can't use brackish water, but you
Oh,
can bring
because
it up.
okay.
But you can bring it up, distill it, and clean it, and use that water.
Because it goes back into the ground.
Goes back into the ground,
Okay.
and it equalizes and pressurizes.
Gotcha.
So
you can't use brackish water.
But you know, I think this was a great show. First of all, let's be very frank.
Let's be frank, we need oil and gas.
Well, and it's 47% of our economy. It's over 350 jobs in our state.
Yep.
You know, direct or indirect.
$1 billion of revenue.
1.2 billion surplus. It's $8 billion to our it's $8 billion revenue to our state. So let me make that very clear. Because what people don't realize too is in Baca, Lee, in our counties, you know, that's where a lot of the revenue goes there too also.
Yep.
And so, but here's my issue, is This is a great opportunity, and I've talked to Brian Egoff about it, the Speaker of the House. The governor's office really doesn't talk to me anymore. So, but this is a great. This is a great. Well, I ran against her. This is a great opportunity for New Mexico. Let's spend money for infrastructure. Let's spend money for job training. Let's spend money for early child education. But this is an opportunity that we can actually revamp our tax system that can come in line with the country. We can get rid of the corporate taxes. We can get rid of the 380 tax exemptions. We can increase commercial property tax 2%. That would even out the business community, save taxes on the business community, and then the gross receipts tax we have to take care of.
We're going to disagree on some of those things. I'm not for big programs that can't be self-sustaining. So if we're talking about early childhood education, you know,
we have to do that.
Okay, so why do we have to do that?
Because
when you're talking about
a third of our children, first of all, 25% of our state lives in poverty. A third of our kids don't have any access to early childhood education. And you're a teacher. Every expert, hold on. Every expert tells me
by third grade.
By third grade.
But then they don't want the third grade reading bill. So if you're talking
about
I'm
okay with that. So I'm okay with that.
Okay, look, my whole point is this: if you want early childhood education, you have to increase the rigor and you have to increase the requirements and make sure that if people are getting early childhood care education, parents are accountable. They're accountable to go to the parent-teacher conference. They're accountable for their kids' attendance.
Not only that, in our plan was we would have community outreach programs, and within the community we'd have two programs a week that we would feed the parents, so the parents would come and be fed. So that's a whole different. And
with early childhood education, I think it's time that the Democrats start compromising on the reading bill. Third grade reading bill. By the third grade, if your kid's not up to speed, they need to go into intensive programs and get that kid. They push back from this all the time because they call it the failing bill.
But K3+, we know that program works. Let's fund that 100%.
Okay, and by the third grade, if they're not at reading level, back they go. Intensive. They don't just push through the system.
I'm okay meeting in the middle if you fund that. Now, one of the things I want to talk about that we didn't get to talk about with any of our guests was, here's one of the issues on the budget that I came across a few years ago that would amaze me. So let's be very frank that about 50% of our operational budget comes from oil and gas. So out of the $8 billion we get, about $4 to $6 billion of it, $4 to $5 billion of it goes into our operational capital.
Yeah.
And then they do the budget. Well, what I learned early on was they were literally, during the Martinez administration, so I didn't see what the Lujan Grisham administration did last year, but during the Martinez administration, the Democrats and Republicans would get together. They budgeted on projected revenue based on the price of the barrel of oil. And they were budgeting at like $97 and $98 a barrel.
Okay.
So then when the barrel dropped to $40, we over budgeted. And my point is, I went back for 20 years. The average price for oil and gas, barrel of oil, over 20 years was about $44.
Okay.
So my point is, I've told the legislators, let's budget our operation at $44 a barrel.
Why not even make it 40?
Well, okay, $40 a barrel, but then we live off that, and then any surpluses you get, you can expand that. And by the way, that's what we do in the business world.
What is this fiscal conservative fiscal responsibility coming out of your mouth, Apo?
I've always been this way.
You are not a Democrat because all you have to do is spend everything and tax more.
But and then here in Albuquerque, the tax, our residents' taxes going up.
Yep. Everything with a $1 billion surplus.
And I got to look into this. I was told this today. Do you know they delayed releasing?
Yep, your tax bill. I actually pulled that up. So
because they could charge you more after December because of the APS mill levies.
Yep. And
so my taxes are going back up again.
And so the first half of December is due December. The first half is due December 19th on your taxes, but you have until January 19th. So they're giving you a whole other month.
To summarize real quick, so I think what we agree on, we didn't talk about renewables today, but today was really about the oil and gas industry, not renewables.
Yes.
We agree on investing in renewables. We agree that solar and wind is a good idea.
With the appropriate usage.
Is a good idea, but
I have solar on my home.
Right now, 47% of our economy is oil and gas. 40% of our economy, our jobs are this.
Well, and I didn't get to talk about childhood miners mining cobalt, right?
Right.
And these are for electric cars, cell phones. So if these young people are really serious about climate change, get rid of your cell phone.
Right.
Stop. Get rid of all your technology. Not going to happen.
Anyway, don't forget, we're on Facebook right now, and we're going to come back after this commercial and talk about some of the Facebook comments today. And Indigo Mortgage, you need a mortgage. Benny does a great job, but we'll be back right after this.
Right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
If you want to improve your reading skills, don't feel like you're alone. Thousands of us in northern New Mexico can't read or write. I used to be just like you. And today, I not only read and write, I write movies like Blood In, Blood Out. Call the New Mexico Coalition for Literacy today, please, at 1-800-233-7587. Get that tutor, learn how to read and write, and open up a whole new life for yourself. Paid for by the New Mexico Coalition for Literacy and aired in cooperation with this station.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Surprisingly, I am surprised by your fiscal conservative nature.
I don't know.
We are in the middle on, let's not just spend everything we have in the Brown House. Right. I mean, if you really look out for the betterment of New Mexico, and you know that we have this windfall of money, why not set some aside?
Well, and again, there's a push from both Dems and Republicans. I would set aside, if I was the governor, I would set aside 25% of our money.
Off the top.
Off the top.
Budget back for $40 a barrel.
I would then do capital LA projects that we know we could get done in 18 months that would generate jobs and revenue.
Yep.
And then look at educational
and we'll have a lasting impact.
Because let me tell you something else. What we didn't talk about, even with this oil and gas revenue, we're seeing more tax revenue come in. Yep. We're seeing more revenue going into the permanent funds that kick out 5% already into our education funds. So because of the success of oil and gas, revenue across the board is going up. And Brian Egoff, legislators, if you're watching the show, we have to, it's a great opportunity to revamp our entire tax system, not just lower grocery receipt tax by like 0.5%. Like we have to totally look at the
Why not get rid of gross receipts altogether? Oh,
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. You have a sales tax, get rid of grocery receipts tax. But
you have a sales tax. We're getting double taxed.
Anyway, we're getting our messages are blown up about anti-fracking. Let's be very real. I think we've talked about it, that fracking isn't the enemy. It's just the way we can do things.
And it's cleaner. It's recycling 90% of the water they use. And let's face it, if you love good schools and good teaching and good programs, oil and gas is paying for it.
And next week, folks, we're going to be talking about DUIs and the holidays. So join us next week. Hey, New Mexico, never give up and always find a way.
Go out and make a difference in the world.
God bless you guys.